Hello, 2021 has started, and so just wanted to wish you happy new year. But I just wanted to talk something which I've written about in some of my blogs is about the time, because we think that 2020 is finished and 2021 has started. In my personal view, this is human compartmentalization of the time. And as you recollect, we always have problem with the time alone as a measurement. And so I thought that I will talk a little bit about the time in the modern science and also about the time in Indian scriptures. Please remember that what I'm saying is what I have learned about, not necessarily accepted, assimilated, or really known anything better than anybody else. As you recollect, in the past, when Newtonian theories were there, we thought time was a constant, so was the space. Over a period of time, somewhere around 1905 or so, Einstein came out with the theory of space-time. It is very difficult for people to think that the time is relative, but it has been proved, and ultimately the measurements of time-space together is what is constant. Very, very difficult to understand and impossible to accept with day-to-day life where we know time is constant. So at a particular level, I'm just going to give you a couple of examples which many of you may already know. If you take a clock, especially an atomic, very sensitive clock, and similar one, put it on the earth, put one on the plane, and go around the earth, at the end of a couple of circles or maybe one circle, you will notice that the clock which is on the plane is slower or running slower or showing less time than the similar clock which is kept on the earth. So whenever you move in the space, the time is reduced as space-time is constant. I'm going to repeat it. When a clock is on a moving object, the time slows down. So the product of space-time remains constant. This is very difficult to accept, assimilate, and certainly impossible to perceive on day-to-day experience because the difference is so little that we can't even look at it with the ordinary amount of time that is lapsed on a regular clock. But they have proved this with atomic clocks. The second thing that I can tell you is that if you are hanging around in the space near something called event horizon. Event horizon is where below which the gravity of the black hole is so tremendous that everything is torn apart and nothing can move. Most of us probably know that it is called black hole as even time cannot pass through it. So the time is affected by gravity under those circumstances, and time literally freezes. It doesn't freeze completely, but just to give you an example, if you're hanging around event horizon for a year, according to your clock, people on the earth would have passed 1,000 years or so. So the time is not constant. The way to explain this would be, simple way would be, let's say you have a fixed income, you make $1,000 or whatever number of dollars you make in a week or a month. You spend more money on eating out in the restaurant. You can't have enough money to go to a play or a movie or do something else. If your rent goes up, something else has to cut because the sum is constant. The other way to explain the same thing is that if you look at a stationary car standing outside on your house or your office, it doesn't seem to move in space. So for that, the time is the soul movement. So if you watch it for an hour, it is still there. The space movement is 0. The time movement is 100%. But if you look at a moving car, then as the car is moving in a space, the time would be reduced. Again, because space-time is constant. What I am surprised is that how did Einstein even think about it, especially since this is beyond our perception. This is not something that we can perceive to understand it. But this has been proved beyond doubt, as I said, by atomic clocks. So if we would move with the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, then the time will stand still. So a clock, if you can imagine, put on a photon particle, if one could, it will not show any time. Again, I'm just telling you what I've read, not that I understand or accept it as it is. But this was fascinating to me when I was reading about it in the different books on universe, space-time, etc. I've loved one particular author named Green. He is an astrophysicist, and his first name is Brian Greene. He has few books out. I think he's in Columbia, and I just enjoyed reading his books, and you can see this. Coming down to which I may not be in position to finish in this particular blog is my astonishment with the Indian scriptural measurements of the time. And that is amazing, because when you talk about the time in terms of hours and minutes and seconds and maybe millisecond, we are astonished that when the Indians or the Hindus, when they had counted the time, it was much different. In astrophysics, there is something called Planck as a measurement of unit, which is kind of a complex. It's called Planck unit, would be a better way to say it. A Planck is a Planck second, is a time required for a photon particle to go a Planck distance. And that is the shortest, smallest possible measurement of a time according to physics. Again, Planck, it was named under, I think, a German scientist, Planck, and he started this before 1900, I think it was 18 something, that he started thinking about this Planck second, which is the shortest possible time unit, movement of the photon particles for Planck time. So they talk about Planck unit rather than Planck distance or Planck time. In Indian mythology, we have 4 yugas. And as I said before, I may not be in position to finish this during this time, but I'm going to tell you the shortest or smallest distance, smallest rather time measurement that Indians thought was called Truti. T-R-U-T-I, Truti. Truti is if you take a lotus petal and tear it, the softest lotus petal, when you tear it, the time that it requires is called Truti, T-R-U-T-I. And if you can imagine, they think it is a much smaller than a unit of time that we normally use, is a second. So there are 17,496 million Trutis in an average day. Contrast that to the standard that we measure is there are 86,400 seconds in a day. So what I would do is I will talk about the Indian time measurements in my next video, because I want to talk about the 4 yugas, then manvantaras. So 71 yuga cycle, 4 yugas make one manvantar, and then there are several manus or manvantaras in a kalpa, 14. Right now we are going through the 7th Manu. But anyway, I'll talk about that next time. Happy New Year. If you like it, subscribe. Have a nice day.